think I remember watching this stream maybe, and I tuned in for I think a good amount of it and saw that it was mainly very short stack ninja, which I always find very exciting. A lot of people find it boring, but I think it's pretty fun when you like go from 10 bigs back up to 20, like, and you keep doing that over and over again. And I don't know, it's kind of fun, but kind of curious if we could jam this hand. I don't think so. I would just fold too, but it would be a question that I would want to have answered. Yeah. I just want to make sure this payout structure is fine for what we're doing. Yes. Yes, it's fine for me, I guess. Well, no, it's not fine. I need like a full final table. Let's see. Nope. Yeah, this is going to be pretty good. I think like a standard payout structure that has that I entered all 9 places in for will be good. Yeah, so let's see. I would say no on shoving this hand, but I wouldn't be surprised if it's like break even. Yeah, especially because what you can kind of theorize about here is most players on final tables play wider than what ICM would suggest, which means the odds that they collide are going to be way higher than what is in this model, which means that we can get to play even tighter. So this one actually is not really even that close, in my opinion. And it says Queen Jack is plus 0.1. I would also just fold this. I think a common thing people have done is like you need at least 5% of aces. So aces is 1.3. So 5% would be like 0.06. It's like this type of range, basically. That's really tight. I don't know if I would have not shoved, for example, King Jack suited. Maybe. I don't know. I guess I probably would have shoved if I was debating this one. I wasn't really debating, but because I was like, I would fold, but it might be close. Yeah, I think this is reasonable. You could convince me that this should just be like a jam, but I think it's fine to call. I like calling more than jamming, but. Good. Yep. Yeah, that's good. Yeah, we could for this one too, since it's not a standard spot. I think a lot of people would be in the jam camp. We could try and take a look and see if flatting ace is a good idea here. Let's see. Yeah. Yeah, that's pretty reasonable. Yeah, sure. So this scenario is not, it's not really too dissimilar from the one we're looking at. It's, I think, 8-handed with 20 big blind average stack. We see his under the gun one player has 23, so we'll make them raise. And then we have 11 in the big. So yeah, it says to non-all, it says to raise to 4 big blinds. Like I'm not going to do that in game, to be honest. Even if the solver tells me to do it. So it prefers calling over jamming. That's kind of how I would read this. Like I'm not going to pull off raise to 4 and then balance it with like ace queen and ace jack suited or whatever. Like it's an output I'm not very interested in, just because I don't think it's going to add a ton of EV to our strategy. So I think flatting seems pretty good. Pretty good turn. I mean, they should just hammer it with like 2 big blinds, I think, mostly, or that. So it's pretty good. Yeah. Yep. Oh yeah. Yep. Oh yeah, I'll pause it here and we'll see. So we had one elimination. You got 24. A-Way has 42-ish, 41. So yep, second. No, but the one thing I will point out that's important, it's not going to happen much because he's on your direct left now. But one thing to keep in mind on a final table is when, say you're second in chips, when the chip leader folds, you become the chip leader of the tournament. So then you get to play extraordinarily wide ranges. So for example, grind mode here is now jumped up to second place. When A-Way folds, he gets to now raise a really wide range into everyone. But whenever this player's in the hand, he can't do that. So something to keep track of. Yep, raise looks good. This is pretty gross. Not gross anymore. Thank you. Very helpful. I can hear you. What's up?
OBS decided to cut my mic all of a sudden. All right, so I thought maybe like that was all right. Great, you could still hear me. No one else could hear me. We're golden. We're golden. We're back. All right. Yes.
All right. Cool. Yeah. I mean, this would have been obviously a really bad, terrible spot for you. I don't even know what I would really recommend. Probably, to be honest, in game, I'd probably just wind up folding and not really lose too much sleep over it if it folded back to us here. Just because we're opening such a strong range, we can, it's not really like there's some exploit opportunity that like this player Nomad's going to be like, oh, Jared's going to raise fold ace queen offsuit. So I'll just like 3-bet him with half my stack all the time. You know what I mean? Yeah. So like if we wind up folding too much here, I don't think it's really that big of a deal because we have a tight raising range to begin with anyway. So
yeah, especially with A-Way to the left.
Yeah. So you got these two guys to your left. It's like,
so you're saying with like the 3-bet, like it's ace queen's probably a decent fold, or I mean, it's either a fold or a jam. Like you can't just call, I can't flat out a position. Yeah, I can't call that out of position.
Yeah, I'd probably just jam like jacks plus ace king or something like that.
I like it.
That was funny. I just hovered my mouse over your name to see what our hand was, like we were playing on Poker Stars. You know what I mean?
I don't think I had a club. Oh, I did have a club. Right. I remember saying like, well, I would have won that, but I don't think that was that would have been I would have hated my entire life. Basically like because like no ace came on the flop and I would be like flipping like, yeah, sure. Massive. Like I'd have 60 big blinds, but like, I don't, like you said, I don't think it would have been like maybe like in a bounty tournament, like early on, like I'll get my ace queen in there in a situation like this.
And
but like
PV, I would get it in too. That's totally fine.
Never here.
But this ICM scenario, I think it's pretty good to play tighter. So
that was wild.
Yeah.
Wow.
All right, so thoughts here. Would you jam this type of hand or call or fold?
So what we haven't like a UTG like razor. I think against like, well, not the buttons because of their chip stack. In this situation, I think I pretty much have to fold because Vegas Vic and Squeeze It Pleases like stacks. Like, I mean, literally, like I would be like, what's how many do we have left? We have 7. I can tell you what the.
Yep, 7.
It's like a $200 pay jump to 6th, and then like it's like 400 to like 5th. So like I literally like would be torching $400. I think if I jammed and got like, but I think like chip EV, you're probably supposed to like jam this.
Oh yeah, chip EV for sure.
Like no, not here.
I would always fold this. I wouldn't do this, but a good, I think like learning thing to think about is I would rather jam ace deuce offsuit than this hand pre-flop, because this hand doesn't do anything in terms of blocking what they'll call with, but ace deuce off of course does block the top of their range. So that's better. And then when you get called with ace deuce off, you have 3 outs. Whereas with this, if you get called, you have 2 outs. And then it doesn't sound like a big difference, but it is. So you will see in ICM scenarios preference for ace and king high hands over these pocket pairs.
Yeah. I think that's a really good point because a lot of people say like, oh, I got a pair like, but like that
Yep.
4s, 5s, 6s, 7s, like they don't have the blockers, you know.
Yep. Ooh, this is a weird spot. If I was in game, I wouldn't even really know what I would do. I think I have my answer, but what would you do?
I feel like did I raise this? I may have folded this. I hope I fold. I hope I fold, but I may have raised this. I think in going back, I would probably fold this with like the way the chip stacks are distributed, and yeah, I think fold.
Yep, that was my answer too. I would fold as well. Yep.
Nice. Always feels good when you're reviewing and you got it right.
Yeah, for sure. All right, this is a spot. This is kind of weird now. And the reason why I say it's weird is because there's not really ICM pressure on us anymore because we're in last.
Mm-hmm.
This player is also not the chip leader anymore. So it does hurt for them to lose chips. So it's a spot where I feel like we could start to play more hands. If the dynamic was how it was previously, where we had a lot of ICM on us and they were chip leading, I would definitely just always fold this hand. But I think at this point, we could probably limp this hand pretty comfortably. That's probably what I would do.
Okay.
So I don't think it's like the end of the world folds. I wouldn't definitely do not beat yourself up for this, but I think just given the dynamics, I think it's fine to start limping a ton of your range.
Would you ever consider raising king 4 off with the king blocker?
Now that's interesting because in a normal chip EV scenario, this is not the hand class I would recommend doing this with. So king rag, queen rag type hands, because this player is incentivized to call you all the time. Say there's no ICM, you're just playing chip EV. They're incentivized to call you all the time, and then you have a disconnected offsuit hand post flop out of position. So it would not be this spot I would want. However, this player, like, are they really incentivized to now call you all the time? Like, not really. Just given the final table dynamic here with being kind of tied with these two players, they don't really want to lose chips unnecessarily. So like maybe that makes raising become better. I would be open to that, but I don't have like a way of, it's not like I've really studied or looked at this spot to really know that for a fact, but those would be my thoughts.
Yeah.
So I would be open to it.
Yeah. I didn't ask that. I was just thinking like, I know in ICM, like the ace, the king blocker is like much more powerful than in chip EV. So it was like something I was like thinking about as we were talking, like, would it, so yeah. Okay, cool. That's interesting.
I do want to see, I'm just scrolling right now and seeing if there's like a similar model to get an idea of how this spot would work. It won't be perfect though. Of course, they'll never be perfect because ICM has like so many different scenarios. But hopefully this is like kind of close. We'll see. So small blind has 14, so it's a little deeper than what. Oh no, it's like pretty close actually. Nice. Big blind. What does big blind have? 22. So it's like a little bit shorter than the in-game scenario. But I think it's like a pretty close spot. And this is actually what we do. So this is really surprising, and I would not have guessed that this would be the output. But this is why I like studying these things, because whenever I'm like, oh, I don't know exactly what I should do, I should probably go look it up and learn.
Mm-hmm.
And it really doesn't even like limping at all in this scenario, which I was clearly doing way too much limping, right? If I was limping king 4 offsuit. So it looks like the raise idea to 2.5 is pretty strong. And that's probably because the response that you're going to get is less calling than in chip EV. Like a lot of these hands would call in chip EV, whereas now they fold.
Yeah.
So that's, if I had to guess, that's the reason for the output being so strong for raise here. So.
And Chad, one thing I've learned in working with Schwibbs is to like, so if you look at this, like a lot of times you're like, oh, okay, king 4 off, like I should like raise or fold here. And I think that that's great. But like, how often do we have king 4 off in this specific situation again? And I think like, Schwibbs, one of the key things Schwibbs talked about is like hand class, and like looking at like the almost like as like buckets or like heat, like a heat map or spots, like you can see like, okay, what types of like areas, like hands do I do I raise? Well, it's going to be like suited broadways a lot, like as well as like your pairs, like eights plus and things like that. And then like there's going to be like the king off, like kind of queen off raggish, jack, like eight, and then like the suited jacks they use the kind of and like suited tens. So you can, so that way it's like, and I try and use this like when I'm trying to think about like what to do in game is like what were like the color, like this one that I like GTO Wizard a lot is like when I look at this like with these or like anything that has like these like different colors is like where are those like colors showing up. And then like if I get it wrong, like maybe I raise king 3 suited, but like that's very close to like queen 3 suited, and it's like, so it's not the end of the world if I raise instead of jam king 3 suited. But like it helps me to like really kind of like visually localize like where's my hand, where does it fall, like and I think like one mistake that I know I made when I first started like studying poker stuff, and then Schwibbs helped me a lot, is like not to like look at like let me memorize everything, but like like use these spots and then also use like what's the bottom. So like king 4 off, like then like it looks like the 7 or like 8 off, like 7 off or like 8 off is like right around the bottom of like where you'd be like raising, like versus like jamming type things. And so I think that these are like, you could say like I'm just gonna raise like all the suited 2s, and then like I know that queen jack and tens are like a few pips like further up. And then like you know raise king deuce suited and ace deuce suited, you're not destroying yourself probably, although you probably like it's better if you know that stuff, but it's a way not to have to memorize it all, but to like, and then you can operate off feel rather than like what does a specific hand do in this specific spot, like the hand class.
I love that way of looking at it. It's definitely what I try and preach. Like it's very important to not get caught up in like in these mixes or exact hand classes. I like that you highlighted that. I think a lot of people do that. I also think it's super helpful to relate this back to something that you know. So to me, this looks almost identical to a button opening range in terms of the outline of it. So that's really helpful. So next time, and people might say like, okay, how does that help you? Well, next time I'm in this type of scenario, I'll know to not try and play 90% of hands or 80% of hands, that's not the goal. The goal is to play what looks like more of a button opening range.
Yeah.
And so that just kind of grounds me in the hands I want to play. And then the next thing is understanding how this is being done. So I would classify this as a polarized range, kind of like how Jared highlighted, but it's pretty much the nuts hands that you're comfortable raise stacking off with, and then polarized bluffs that you don't really care to raise fold. And then it shoves the middle, right? So like that type of outline, like I'm never going to hit these exact hands perfect. It's not going to happen, but at least having this outline in my head will help me get approximately close to what the right answer is. Granted, I wasn't really close here, but it's fine. It's not the end of the world. So.
Wait, can you pause like just, well, you can find next playable hand, but I realize when we switch from Poker Tracker to like GTO Wizard that the formatting is slightly messed up. Shoot, just
gotcha.
Because it's like I had it like shrunk down for
cropped a little.
Yeah, I cropped. Chat. So just bear with us 1 second. It's something I didn't really anticipate. You can see like on air what it looks like to have to format some of this stuff. I believe that this will. No, I didn't mean to crop this stuff. That was silly. I think it's gonna go to like right there. Then we're gonna have to see like we format all this to make it fascinating. Oh, we'll just have to bring it up. All right, I think that'll be fine. All right, cool. All right, sorry, thanks.
Nice. Yeah, no worries. All right, so I scrolled through a couple hands. I didn't really have questions or think that they were that interesting. So we're now here. So 10 big blinds and this player jams. Thoughts here? Like, how would you approach this? What would you be thinking about?
Well, I know that I made the call here. So, you know, I'll ruin like what was my decision. I mean, I have 10 bigs. Everybody's got like at least 2x my stack. R. Kelly's
Yeah.
gonna be jamming like everything. And you know, like I mean, in hindsight, I think the problem is I don't really dominate any of the ace X he jams, so I don't know if this is like the greatest call in the world. I think this is like one of my first potential like biggest mistakes, where I get a little bit lucky. But I know he's jamming like broadways and like, you know, he'd be jamming like 5 deuce suited, 10 deuce, like, or 5 deuce, 10 deuce. Like he probably might be jamming. Like he's like one of the best players in the MI player pool. So I know that he's going to be probably jamming with, but he might not be thinking that way. He might be thinking I might be more likely to call off. So I think that might probably should have changed the way that I approached this situation, and probably should have, I think in hindsight, folded this hand. Although you might tell me something differently, but I think like there's still don't want to like burn my chances. But I know that this is a chip EV. This is like, I think, a call every time.
Yeah. Yeah. So that last part, what you just said, chip EV call every time. I take that model because I know I'm very confident in that. At 10 big blinds, chip EV, we don't fold this hand. And then so I take that model and put it into this scenario and say, is there any reason for this to be different? For me personally, no.
Okay.
Because there's no ICM pressure on us. Like you said, we're last by, everyone has like 2.5x at least our stack. So is it a great, super profitable spot, fist pump call? No. But do you still call? Yeah, you still call. I don't think, I would be pretty shocked if we run this and it says like ace four. If it says ace four off as a fold, I would be extremely surprised. So yeah, I would just call the spot.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think that's it. So what big blind, what stack size does this become a fold for you?
Oop, I did not want to do that. Well, gave away the answer, but that's fine. So at what stack we have?
Like what, how many big blinds in relation to, like, let's say everybody still has like, what's it, 25 big blinds. Or what stack size does this become a fold?
I would say like maybe 14, 13, 14, 15. I wouldn't be, I know I would not be calling this off if we're 15 big blinds deep. I would just fold. And that might be too tight. But yeah, I would still just fold.
That's actually kind of like, well, if I had to guess, I was like, well, it's probably like around 15 is where that. So, which means, chat, that probably if you're at 16 or 7 or like 13 or 14, and you decide to fold, like maybe it's a little too tight, but it's not like an end of the world mistake, like at like 10 bigs type thing.
Yeah. So this is the natural output. It gives the small blind a jam range of 82% of hands, which is, it might be pretty close to what the player's doing in game. They might wind up shoving 100. They might wind up shoving 60. Of course, we'll never know that. But against this jam range, it basically shows that ace deuce off. If I take 5% of aces, it would be like 0.12. So if I just bump this up to 0.1, like I said, this is going to be a pretty break even call. But even knowing this output, I would still just take it in game. I wouldn't, even seeing this, I wouldn't just wind up folding. I would wind up folding like queen 9 off, jack 10 off, those types of hands. Queen 8, I'd probably still wind up calling queen 8 and king 5. I wouldn't pass too much here, is basically what I'm trying to say.
Okay.
And then the next question that you had was, at what big blind would this become a fold? 15 would be 600K, I think. So. Yep. So definitely a fold here. I guess we can go lower stack and I could do like 500 and we could see. That would probably do it. 13 bigs. That's what I was thinking. I was like 13, 14, something like that. Yeah, it's still a fold at 13. It might even be a fold at 12, but I think we kind of get the idea.
Yeah. Yeah, great. Thank you. Savonius said they were thinking 12-ish big blinds versus ace deuce for a fold that we were discussing. And also says great stuff here, that he's that they're loving the content. So
awesome. Yeah, love to hear it. Appreciate it. And we'll since you posted in chat, we'll test it. We'll see. I think this is what we had. So I guess like 490 or whatever, 480. I don't know.
Yeah, 480, I think. This is 40K big blinds. Is that what it is?
Yeah. Yeah, I guess 490 would be 12. So it looks like that's exactly what it is. Good stuff.
So at 12, call, everything else, fold.
Yeah. I could tell you we win this hand.
Yeah, well, we wouldn't be doing this review if I lost this hand. But in this, I think this is like you saw, like he jammed King 5 off, which I think like this like again, this is like a very like one of the I think people identify R. Kelly as like one of the like in the pool of crushers in Michigan, or like close to the crushers, and so like I'm not shocked when they flipped over King 5. I was like, this is. I mean, I got the money in good, like, and it's like kind of like a race a little bit, you know, we're like ahead. It's like probably like a 60-40 ish or something like that, but in the spot.
I would also do the same if I was this player.
Yeah. So yeah, I would have jammed King 5 off 100% at the time with the King blocker.
So this will be a good spot to look at, just in terms of pre-flop, because my intuition says to like do something like limp most of the time, although we saw that was bad previously, but the stack sizes all changed. And now we're no longer in the lead. So my approach here would be to limp most of the range, including strong hands too.
Okay.
So I think this is pretty good. Pretty good flop.
You love to see it.
Yeah. All right. This will be kind of fun, I think. So thoughts here, what would be your overall approach?
I think you could play this either two ways. Either like you lead or you check raise. Well, depending. Like I guess if the person decided to like go very large or something like that, I might not check raise. But like I think if it was like if I decided to check, this is a check raise spot. It's a check to check raise. Unless they like potted it, then maybe I would consider just calling. But maybe not, because they're obviously saying they have like what should be a strong hand, and then they might be I'm willing to get it in with a straight, like 100%, like off the rip, off the flop here. So, but I think either like I think you could lead or check to check raise. I think it might have checked to check raise. But this person's kind of like a little bit more passive, so I think lead in might be a better way to kind of go, because they're gonna probably call a little wider. We don't block like Jack or 9. We don't block Jack X, 9X. Like we don't like, I don't have like a pair. So they're more likely to have a pair when I have this straight.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. I think the camp that I'm in is to pretty much check range on this board.
Okay. And
then when I do check this hand, I think it's fine to check call or check raise. So that's the thinking I'm in. And it's like, okay, where are you getting this from? This is not the best board since this player checked back pre-flop. They'll connect a lot with this board. So by betting, just like never mind our hand, just our overall range for limping pre-flop, it's a pretty easy board for them to defend. And they're not, in my opinion, I don't think people would make too many mistakes here. So it's not a spot where I want to start betting in that sense, where I'm getting overfolds. And then when that's the case, like yes, it would still be good to bet this hand and build a pot, but then what happens when I have air? Like I can kind of get run over. So I'm really think about all that and just be like, okay, I'll just check my whole range as sort of like a simplification. So you did wind up checking, which I think is good. This player bets half pot. Now, whether you raise here or call, I'm good with both. I think I bias toward raising without the heart. So if we have queen of spades, 10 of clubs, I'd probably pure raise. And then when we have the heart, I would just pure call. So, and then I didn't explain that reasoning. So the reason is when we don't have the heart, we need a little bit more protection, and we also can get a little bit more value because then it's more likely they have a heart, right? They have 10-9 with the 10 of hearts, Jack 10 with the 10 of hearts. So we could get much more value, and then we need more protection from their one heart hand. So if they're betting something like, I don't know, queen of hearts X, like queen of hearts 5, it's not like, I mean, that hand's dead, so you don't care if it stays in, but you kind of get the idea where like queen 10, no heart needs a little bit more protection, where when you have queen 10 with a heart, you don't need any protection from hearts coming. So I don't think the raise is going to be bad, but that's how I would think about it.
Yeah. Yeah. I actually think that like what you're saying makes a lot of sense. I see like when you study, I think you see this is that like hands that you like double barrel bluff with are ones that don't have the or bluff with or don't have like the blockers, like the flush draw blockers or flush blockers, like backdoor flush. Like, you know, if you have like heart club and you have like club and you c bet the flop, like solvers want you to start to check the turn, because like it's less likely that they called with like backdoor flush draw, and so you're gonna have less folds and things like that. And so I think like what you're saying there like makes a lot of sense, is that like, you know, you need more protection and you can get more value. So like my raise there is not as good with that combination, because like they have less combos to call with. So.
Right. Yep. Yeah, I agree. And like also the lesson here is to never walk away from the spot and be like, oh, your raise was bad. Like, of course it's not bad. You have the nut straight. Like, it's going to be pretty good to raise. But it's just about, for me, like whenever I study these spots, it was always about refining that thought process a little bit more to like pick out exactly like, okay, mapping when I raise, how do I get value? And like mapping that directly to probably Jack 10 of hearts or King, like Jack 10 with the 10 of hearts or King 10 with the 10 of hearts, something like that. Whereas then when I have this hand, I block it. So it's just like something at the margin. It's a little thing, but that's what I've been focusing on.
Jerry Bees also says great content, by the way. So thank you. Thank you, Jerry.
Thank you. Yeah. So yeah, this raise is going to be pretty good. Well, it's kind of funny because like I would always raise the spot in game. And then when I studied ICM not too long ago, I saw button raise first ends being like way tighter than I'm used to them being in Chippy V. So I would still advocate for raising, and that's what I would do here. But this is a spot where I do want to quickly check just to make sure I'm not like making some huge mistake. You know what I mean? I wonder if this spot is too dissimilar. We'll see. So in this spot, let me pull this back up. Might be small for people to see, but we have a 5-handed game where these are the stacks. So 25 big blind average, 25 in the hijack, 18 cutoff, and then us on the button with 22. Small blind covers, 32 and big blind covers. So I would say in this scenario, we have a little bit more ICM than in this scenario, than in the in-game spot. And it still raises a7, so that's good for me to see. But what I mean is I'm used to button opening ranges being like 45 to 50%.
Oh, okay.
So when that contracts all the way down to 28 because of ICM, it's a big adjustment that I have to be aware of. And so since I now know that, like these are spots I will check. Whereas like 8-6 offsuit is like a snap button open, but when there's ICM on you, it may not be as good. So, but in this scenario, like the ICM is less because you cover, like you're all even here. So I think it's fine to raise any ace here, in my opinion, or close to it. It's a little bit different of a scenario.
Great.
So this is going to be pretty good. This player 3.2 again, quite annoying, but I would just fold. Yep.
Yeah. They were active.
Yeah.
They're active.
Yeah, it almost gets tempting to like work in a 4-bet bluff shove, but I would probably want to stick to suited hands and like ace-5 suited if I were to do that.
Maybe like ace-4 suited at the worst, but ace-5 suited is probably like the nutted. That's the nutted like 4-bet shove bluff hand.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. Oh, wrong way. All right, so here you could mix to raise or call. I think both are fine. So, and I know that like we've been over the ISO, like polarized ISO strategy, so I'm not going to really reiterate that. It's probably fine to call or raise, but I would mainly just call. I'm not surprised to see you call either. I'm not asking questions because I think it's like pretty straightforward. Okay, thoughts here?
Again, like I know that this is a better player, and so that they're. I think it becomes a little dicey. It starts to get dicier, but it's a small bet size. And like when I look at my stack, like this doesn't kill me to call. I think I might be overfolding if I overfold like a 10, but I think you could convince me that like folding here because I have a weaker 10, and like when they're barreling a second time, like they could have limped like overs. I don't know if they do, but I think that they could do that to be trappy. Like that, I mean, I put that within the realm of possibility, or like over pairs. They also get better 10x. They could be doing this with 4x. But I also know that they could be doing this with like, I mean, blocking kind of like the spades makes maybe this like, it's less likely they're barreling, or like they're now betting like a spade draw type thing. But I think probably for the size, just a call.
Okay. Yeah, the one thing I would say for that is, since it's the 10 and it's paired, like your spade blocker is not irrelevant. It would be different if it was like the 7 of spades, because then that would be a spade draw that they can have, right? Yeah. But you don't, since it's the 10, it's not like you're blocking their bluffs with this hand.
All right. Yeah, actually, that's really good. Thank you.
Yep. Yeah, no problem. Yeah, I would say in this spot, I would just pure call this hand. The queen on the turn, you don't really have many queen high hands for calling the flop. So if this player is sophisticated, it sounds like they are, they probably know that and can barrel this at a pretty aggressive weight. I think your range basically looks like 4x, 10x, and ace high, maybe some king high. So they could barrel this at a progressive weight. I'm a little surprised on the sizing. They could probably go bigger with some hands. Like, to me, this kind of feels like you're chopping. I usually don't play this way, but I have like a pretty, and I don't remember this hand, I'm being honest, but I have like a pretty deep conviction that we're just chopping now, and this player has like on a 10-8 or something, or jack 10.
Yeah.
But that's just like my feel and my read. I usually don't teach that type of stuff because it's not reliable at all.
Yeah.
But yeah, I would just say, like, with your range, you could fold all your ace highs. Maybe if you had any other types of floats, you could fold all those, but I would not fold the pair of 10s, especially one that doesn't really block how they would be bluffing, or at least they're visible bluffs. So. Oh, that's funny. They should have just shoved the river, because you can't call.
Yeah.
I don't think you would have any calls. Like, it's hard to imagine you getting here with any hand that has like a king in it that would be willing to call. So
yeah, outside of like king 4, like, I mean,
yeah, you have trips and that's it. I would have just like shoved my whole range if I were them. So now I'm like pretty convinced they either have like queen 9 or like 10-8, I guess. I don't know. Yeah, queen 3. All good. I was kind of in that realm here, that it was like the weakest queen. I was thinking if they have like a stronger queen, like queen jack or king queen, they would bet bigger. That could be wrong, but that was where my head was at. Yeah, this is gonna be pretty good. I don't have any questions here.
Yeah, that person's also like was their play style is a little bit more like, they were the chip leader and they weren't that active, and that was one thing I had taken note of, and that I felt like they were probably they were going to have to overfold that spot anyway, and 2, like, I think that they probably were going to overfold, like, even if there was like a marginal hand, they might just fold it because they were trying to like not lose chips type thing, which is a correct strategy in ICM. You don't want to lose chips, but when you're chip leader, there just hadn't been a lot of pressure and aggression. So
yeah, makes sense. Also, I did want to go back here because I just realized something. Totally reasonable for this player to check this hand class on the river. I was just, when I said that they should shove, I was thinking about like most of their range and not necessarily this exact hand. I just want to make that one clear.
Yeah, that's good. Good point of clarification.
Yeah. Did I see this? And then you get a walk.
Oh, I think I raised the queen 3 hand. I think they had limped. Oh no, they did walk me. Okay, they just walked me.
Yep, so this is a good fold. So this is something, if, like, since we've worked together, especially on chip PV cutoff ranges, it'd be like, okay, offsuit 9, staple open. This is a good one to now fold out because of the exact scenario you're in, with it being final table. Also, with it being shorthanded, there's less money in the middle for you to win pre-flop. So it'll tighten up the ranges a little bit. It's a good fold here.
Yeah. Now, if I had like 38 bigs and everybody else is at like 19, I definitely open,
Yeah, you could probably open like 50% of hands or something. Like, you could open a pretty wide range there. if you cover by that much. Yes, this one's interesting based off what we've seen previously.
Yeah, I probably
Just
should have
because
limped this.
Yeah, my reaction would be that we should limp. So 20 big blind average. So I am going to take a look at this. I know these spots like take a while to look up, but if we don't look them up, then I'm never going to know, you know?
Yeah.
And it's like, whenever I don't, I feel like I need to.
Oh, it's all good.
Yeah. All right.
Are we an ICMizer? Or GTO?
No, because they only evaluate shoving or folding.
Yeah.
So I need a model. So I'm going to use GTO Wizard because they have a lot of ICM preflop models now.
Yeah.
They used to not, but they do now.
Chad, if you don't use GTO Wizard, I know I'm sure Schwibbs would also recommend, but I also find it like super useful, and you can develop drills to help you like work on spots, which I think as an educator, I think is like super useful because you're not just like looking at things. You're like actually able to like play and study and then, you know, that type of stuff. So I credit that work a lot with in GTO Wizard, a lot with like my improvements over the last few months. Like Schwibbs and I working together and like developing drills, like identifying spots, and then me doing work in GTO Wizard.
Okay, this was like the closest comp I could find. It's not going to really be the same, but small blind has 19, big blind has 17, so pretty close. And then there's 3 other shorter stacks, all above 10 big blinds. So if we look here, that's not really too dissimilar to the situation. However, in this spot, the small blind covers. So it's going to translate to like much more aggressive play. Even though it's only covering by 2.5 bigs, it is going to be way more aggressive here. So I wouldn't use, like, seeing this output here, I would not apply this here. I think it's different because you're like exactly even pretty much.
Mm-hmm.
Or you don't cover them. You have a little bit less. So that's why it's important to understand how the models work and be like, okay, that's not the same spot. It looks like we're not going to find a good enough spot for this, which is unfortunate, but it is what it is. We can look at this, but it's like, okay, we have 14 bigs. Yeah, there's still not really much limping going on. So maybe this is like a good tweak that I'm going to make to my game on final tables going forward, where it looks very, very different from chip EV small blind ranges.
So a lot of like raise, shoving, folding.
Yeah, it's a lot of raising and shoving, and it pretty much pulls limping out of the strategy, which is cool because it's something that's super important in chip EV. So
yeah. Well, I guess like when you think about like pre-flop play in terms of like ICM, it's a lot of like 3-bet fold, and there's not a lot of like call-in. So I guess it doesn't not make sense in terms of how like the solver's like thinking about things.
Yeah, for sure. I'm with you on that. Pretty easy fold. Nice. Assuming you're always calling. I don't know if I should ask, but I'm going to ask.
I did call. This is actually another place I thought could have possibly been a mistake.
No. I would just always call. I don't think I would ever fold. I know this player's been like, the read I have on them is that they've been tighter and they play pretty much like jam or fold, or like they have these big raise sizings or they just jam. I think this hand does way too well to want to fold. I don't know if I would fold ace queen off. I think you probably should. I think a model would suggest to. So in that case, I guess I would. I just don't know if I would have the discipline in game to fold it.
Yeah. Well, this person had like shoved and 3-bet me and like on a lot of people with like kind of in like a lot. So this is funny because I actually thought I lost this hand.
Oh, nice.
I was like, oh my God, like I lost, like, and I was like, I should have never, and like, the hand was going on. And I looked, and you'll see what happens in the next hand. And I all of a sudden realized I thought that I had like 2 big blinds and they got it in. And you'll see with the hand that they decide to shove with.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Oh wait. So what happens? So raise and then yeah, they just shove 6-3 off. See, that's amazing.
And so for people who are watching this, I literally was like, oh my God, I can't believe I have like two bigs and this person shoved 6-3 off. Like, what the fuck just happened? And then I looked down and people are like, I was like, wait, what happened that hand? I had to pull up the replay and I was like, holy crap, we chopped? I literally was like, oh my God, I lost this flip. This was terrible. I might have just torched like all my equity. Like maybe I should never call this. I was like in the whole process. And then I realized like, oh, I'm still in it. And I have 20 big blinds.
That's amazing.
The things that when you don't stream that happen, you're like, oh, like, you know, like anyway,
yeah.
Let's talk about this.
Yeah, for sure. No, that's funny. So I would definitely advocate for just checking back pre-flop. I wouldn't really want to raise this hand. It's like that type of equity profile where if you get jammed on, it's terrible because then you have to fold. And you don't really want to be like bluffing with this hand. You can bluff more polarized.
Yeah.
But then on the flop, the way I would think about this is, I don't know actually. Because I was going to say that it's not too hard to defend this board since it's a monotone board. But I think generally people might, I don't know, because basically what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to think about hands that this player would fold that they should call. And it's kind of hard to come up with them on this exact board because everything is like a flush draw or a straight draw or a pair, essentially. And if they're not those hands, then they are going to be natural folds. Like if they just have king 5 of clubs, I think it's just a fold is fine. So basically what I'm saying is there's not a huge exploit opportunity for betting and getting them to fold more than they're supposed to. So then whenever that's the case, I will be pretty careful about how I bluff. It's probably still not like the worst hand to use because you have the 3 to straight and the overcarded the jack, but yeah, that's how I would think about it. I'm not saying to never bet that hand on that board, but that's what I would consider.
Yeah, I think in some ways I might have been thinking like just denying equity and getting them to fold out and scoop the chips. But yeah, I think that you're right. Like what was really the point of me doing that? Because I have like lots of their hands in like big trouble that aren't beating me, and like hands that like are beating me are always calling and defending. You know, like it's not like I'm getting them to fold like worse hands, and I'm not going to barrel the turn like a maniac.
Yeah, fair enough. All right, so this seems like reasonable based off what we've seen. So
yeah, I was just thinking like ace blocker, like I mean, I was appreciative for the latter, but sad to see R. Kelly win.
Yeah, good news though is that they're on your right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would fold this. I don't think I would start defending this. So I think this is pretty good based off what we've seen. Yeah. I think checking this flop is going to be at least reasonable. You could bet it. I wouldn't have any issues with that either. Yep, I think this is definitely good.
I think maybe I could have gone like instead of 53%, like 33% on the turn, but you know, because
definitely go smaller.
Because they I mean, what calls it like when they don't bet, like what calls do they have? And I think that this is a small it's a small thing, but like I think like really what calls do they have at this point in time? Like outside of like
it's like 8x and 3x basically.
Yeah. But I would have thought that they probably bet though. Most people are gonna bet those, I think, on the flop. Like 8x especially.
Yeah.
So
yeah, this is annoying, but I would just recommend folding. The price is so stupid, but I would still just fold.
Yeah.
Yep, that's pretty good.
Yeah, I was gonna say, it's like so queen 3, like king 3, ace 3 off. Like, are those like raises when they limp for you? Yeah, like you said, the queen 3. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, definitely. This is an interesting spot. What do you want to do here?
It's jam or So I think initially I thought, because I remember this spot in game, I thought like, so I could jam. It's either jam or fold probably in a sense, because like they're going to have just a ton of folds. And then I thought like, I know in ICM there's like some like like not all in 3-betting. And I thought about like, is this like I don't, if you were to ask me like what specific hands do you not all in 3-bet to balance your like aces, I'd be like, I don't know. And so I thought about like, I was like, is this one of those times where like, I would imagine just like like an ace 10 or an ace jack, somewhere like one of those hands would probably be like one of the not all in like 3-bet type things. That was my guess. Like crude, and I was like, I think I'm gonna use this as like a not all in 3-bet.
Nice. Did you do it? I
Yeah.
actually really like it now that you
Yeah.
talk through it.
Yeah. Did.
Nice. Yeah, I think that's actually pretty good. Basically, how I think about this is like we jam ace king and ace queen and probably ace jack pretty comfortably, and I would just pick probably the worst ace x hand you would like consider playing. Right. So we're just gonna fold ace 8 mainly and ace 9. So this is a pretty decent way to do this. I do not hate this at all. I'll be totally honest. I've never looked at 3-handed ICM sims. So we're going to go for a little adventure and see what's good. So we got like kind of like 30, 20, 20. So this will get better. It'll get easier to find comparable stack sizes, right? So let's see. Let me put any on. I don't know if that'll be helpful. It would be cool if you could also just like type it in. That'd be neat. Sorry, one sec. This player is big blind that has 30. Okay. I basically just need 2 even 20s here, essentially. I guess this is kind of close. It's the best I got, looks like. So not perfect, but is what it is. Reason it's not perfect is because this is going to allow the small blind to be much more aggressive because they cover by 5 big blinds, I think. Maybe not though. But anyway, button raises. This is our non-all-in 3-bet range, and there's ace 10. Nice. So pretty sick that you found this. This is awesome.
Nailed it. Yeah, I probably actually would be jamming a lot of like ace kings. I probably would have jammed like much of like the not all in 3-bet range. I probably would be jamming way too wide instead of like not all in 3-betting. But I don't know. Like I haven't played a lot of as much tourney poker, so I'm not as locked in as I was at this time. So, and I think I just saw something where they were talking about, I don't know if it was like you or like something else. I was like looking, they were talking about like ICM, like maybe it was like Jamie Staples or something, saying like a lot of people thinking like you have to just like shove, but like, in ICM, like what they had been learning was like there was a lot more like not all in 3-betting. And so I think I was trying to like, well, I don't know how to incorporate that. I was trying to think about like ways to not torch maybe like all my equity, but like they're still going to fold like when I not a lot, like they're going to overfold because like you're like, well, do I really want to play a 3-bet pot right now? Like if they're, like and lose chips if they're, and also I think there's a perception in our player pools that people don't 3-bet enough. And so,
for sure. Yeah.
So I think
it allows for some pretty good opportunity. Yep. The one I will highlight here, this is like the nut one to do it with. I've seen in a lot of scenarios, king queen offsuit is like a great not all in 3-bet. I've seen that one come up a lot. I haven't seen much as much ace 10, but I don't study these spots like a crazy amount. But they're pretty comparable hand classes. So
why do you think awesome. the king queen off is like the nut?
Yes, it's a hand where it just has the best blockers essentially, and it's totally fine to 3-bet fold it. So not that like ace 10 is not fine to 3-bet fold it. That is what you should do, but it just comes down to the blockers having both the king and the queen. It's better to me, like I'd rather use king queen offsuit than ace 8 suited. Mm-hmm. Not sure if that's correct. It may not be, but that's how I would feel about it.
Yeah. Well, and I think like when you're talking about that, I think about like the king queen off like gets people to fold hands that are ahead of you. Like they're gonna fold like ace 8, ace 9. They might even fold like ace 10, like with ICM and stuff like that. So like those are hands that like you're behind and you're out of position, and now you're getting like better hands to fold out. So it's like, and they're not going to call like king jack. They shouldn't call like king jack off. I don't think king 10 off. Like in this situation, I would think that they're folding that.
Yep, 100%. This actually proves my point. I just clicked on EV, and so king queen offsuit has 0.03 in the raise 5, so it's capturing 0.03 chips out of this 3.9 big blinds, and that's ahead of ace 9 suited, ace 8, ace 7, ace 6, ace 5.
Nice.
So it just comes down to better blockers.
I like it. It's good shit.
Yeah.
Everyone's gonna be winning tournaments after listening to you talk on this session.
Hopefully, that's the goal.
Yeah, I think. What'd you think about the Jack 10? I normally would defend this, but they went to 3, and I was like, this is probably supposed to be a call. Like, this is probably the bottom of what should be a call. But in game, I don't know why I decided to, like, I can't tell you like a good explanation of why I folded this outside of like its offsuit. But I think after I did it, I was like, I think that was supposed to be a call.
Yeah, no, good point. And I, to be honest, I don't know why I like glazed over this one, because I would recommend calling too. I don't think that this would be a fold. Just you have position, getting a good price, pretty good hand, connected, decent cards. So yeah, I would play this one as well. I probably want to calling Jack 9 off too. Maybe I would definitely fold Jack 8. I think. Pretty interesting though.
So like I'm looking at the poker tracker stats, and one of the craziest things is we played 84 hands, and I was at the like one of the shortest chip stacks. And if you look at like my activity versus like the person to my left who was like the chip leader, is like I'm like, what? This is not my stats should be like shifted to the left, I think is a point. Like if you're the chip leader, like I shouldn't, not that I shouldn't have been as I played the hands. We haven't identified hands where I was like in hands. I just got hands that I could play, but like that's not really how it's supposed to look. It's not supposed to be looking that way. Instead of I got lucky in terms of card distribution.
Yep.
All right. So this should be a call.
Yeah. So I am looking, I like to look up most spots. So again, apologize if it's slow, but this is against a 2.5x raise size, which is different. But if we see like it extends all the way down to Jack 7 and Jack 8 are there. So if we make this a 3x, I think it's totally fine to keep Jack 10 offsuit still in there. And I would still keep the offsuit 9s in versus 3x.
There are worse things in the world than overfolding smidge in ICM situations.
Yes. Yep. All right. Thoughts here?
I mean, I think that if this was suited, I might be more likely to, I don't remember what I did, but I think that this should probably just be a jam.
Good. Yep. Yeah.
Yeah. Suited, like I think not all in 3-bet. I think we saw that when we looked at the solver last time that like, but I think again, like the suited hands play better post flop than the offsuit hands. So that's kind of like what I would be thinking there.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm with you. Definitely good to fold this though. Yeah.
If I would have called that one and folded Jack 10
yeah, it would be pretty funny.
Probably limp. Oh no, we're raise.
It looks like limping from what we've seen today, which again, it is new for me. I'm going to spend more time there. Whenever I figure out something that I feel like I don't know, which is basically like don't limp the small blind in ICM final tables. I'm going to spend a lot of time working on that in the next coming weeks. But based off what we've seen, I would want to raise his hand, especially exploitatively. It looks like this player is playing pretty passively and folding quite a lot. So I think it's probably a fine spot to raise. And I'd rather raise this than like queen 3 offsuit. I don't know if that's right, but this just has more connectivity when you're called, it plays a little bit better. But maybe that's not as great of a consideration. If my thesis for raising is that they're going to fold too much, then maybe it doesn't matter. So yeah, I don't know. Yep, this looks good to me. And don't fold. I probably wouldn't raise either. I don't know if that was like your main go-to or if you would just call. If I had to guess, I feel like you would just call, but you could tell me if I'm wrong.
Yeah, I think maybe in like a chip EV, if I was playing 3-handed, it might be a different type of like consideration. But I think that this should just be a call. I was a little annoyed because the bet size was so big. I was like, it's annoying that it's such a big bet size and I have to call. You can't fold here. So yeah, well, if they went smaller, I might have considered like raising, but I think once they're going like over half pot, Like I'm now committing like probably 25, 33, 40% of my chips on a raise that I don't think would be necessarily a good. I could be burning chips essentially. So
Yeah, well, if you raise this hand, you would definitely do it with the intention to just stack off.
yeah,
Another thing is like I would not be shocked if someone ran this hand three-handed in PO solver or something and it said just jam. I wouldn't be.
Yeah.
It wouldn't surprise me too much. I wouldn't necessarily do it. I do like calling better, but I think it's fine. Okay, thoughts here?
Well, I think. I mean, I'm blocking like Jack 10. They can have like Queen Jack. They could certainly be like barrel and spade draws and things like that. I think this is a tough one to like fold. But the sizing is again like, I mean, it's a mid-size. So I think probably, although I do block like well, I mean, the backdoor hearts, like, no, because they supply. Yeah, I think probably just a call here, but I think with ICM, maybe like this could just be a fold once they start to like continue to barrel. Because they still have like overs and they have like Jack X. They could have Jack X and things like that in their range.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm with you. I would say like my gut reaction is to call. However, the 10 blocker is pretty bad. Just blocking a lot of how they would bluff. So Queen 10 and 10-9 specifically. Whereas like it might, I don't know if this is true, but it might be better to call with a hand like 8-6 over 10-8.
Yeah.
I don't, to be honest, I don't know what the best thing is here. Like if you, and whenever I get that feeling, to me, it sounds like the spot will be pretty close to indifferent between calling and folding. So if you call, I'm totally comfortable with it. If you wind up folding with the thesis, like I have a bad blocker for how he's bluffing and this player's tight, and it seems like they might be weighted to strength, I would also be fine with that conclusion. I wouldn't really beat you up for it. I don't advocate for people like habitually overfolding more than they should, but this is a spot where I think it would be fine if you did. Pretty great river for you. That's sarcasm, but yep.
I mean, well, it saved me from a tough spot. Ragin said like a shove on the flop there. So I think that is certainly an option. Shove. Yeah. But it wouldn't shock me if that was the best move. I feel like I have seen that output before, but I haven't run enough sims like that to be super confident in the answer. So yeah, this is just weird. I have to look at more of these spots, but it could just be like razor folds. I don't know. Yeah. I was pretty confident I had the best hand, I think, at this point in time, based off of like player tendencies.
Yeah, I think checking down is pretty reasonable. I'd be pretty keen to call a bet on the river if they did. I probably would have, but
yeah, I think I would have been tempted to call.
Okay, so I think one thing I've seen recently is I would probably recommend betting less of these bottom pairs.
Okay.
I think a lot of people love stabbing them, and it's not necessarily bad, but what could wind up happening is this player could start like check raising you all the time if he knows that you do this, even like pretty thin for value. That's something that I've looked into semi recently, and seems like a pretty good idea for this player to start doing that, especially if they knew, not that they know you're doing this, but those are kind of things I like to think about is, okay, what are the consequences of me betting really thin for protection here? It's like, okay, I can start to get check raised if they know that I'm doing this.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's a really good point.
Ooh, pretty great river.
Yeah.
Okay, thoughts on sizing here? Because obviously you're going to bet.
I mean, I think that, I think like, do I go, I think going big is probably not going to get called by much. Although I think you could probably say, well, no, it's blind v blind. Yeah, I mean, I think I can get called by like two pairs. I can call by like probably get called by like, you know, almost any pair. With any, like, if I go like medium to like 53 to 83%, I think is probably getting called by a lot. So I don't know what your thoughts are about that. I think at least 53%, but I think 83% might be kind of like the sweet spots for me if I'm thinking about that. Like trying to think about like the things that are going to call me, that call the river. Or I think flush draws probably check raise under the like this play. Like better players are probably going to check raise out of position flush draws. I know you don't have to always, but
Do you mean flushes on the river or flush draws earlier in the hand?
well, yeah, sorry. Wait, flush draws on the. Can you still hear me, by the way?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Yeah, I got this weird message. Yeah, flush draws on the flop. I think if they have flush draw, that they're probably going to check raise this out of position and not just check
Right
call.
here.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I don't think that they have any flush draws. So I think that that's like, I'm not saying it's not possible, but it's unlikely I think in my read that they're going to have the flush draw on the river, and so I'm not that concerned about flushes. So I think like I'm thinking like Jack X, although I think Jack X is probably going to check call here. After could take a check call, like a weaker Jack X line. So I think like 83% is where I would land.
Okay. Yeah, it's pretty reasonable. I like where you wound up. For me here, I would deploy pretty large bets. I don't think I would shove, but I might bet like 6 or 7 or 8 big blinds, something like that. The reason for it is similar to what you identified. They're pretty capped. So not that they can't have flush draws here. They definitely can have some. But like you said, a lot of them do wind up raising.
And they're probably going to bet the river. Like they're going to lead the river.
Exactly. So right here, this is a spot where it takes a lot of discipline for someone to mix in a check to check raise a flush. So I kind of strip out most of their flushes. I strip out a lot of their Jack X. So I just think that they're pretty capped for check call flop, check turn, and then they check the river. Most of their hands are going to be 7X, 5X, and ace high, like broadly speaking. Because if they had complete air, it's a reasonable chance they would bluff. Now they won't bluff all of it, but they'll bluff a good amount of it. And then if they had a strong hand like a flush, trips, or top pair, they'd probably wind up betting it on the river. So they're pretty capped. And then we're, of course, we can still be uncapped. We can still have value. I mean, case in point, we can have trips. So this is a spot where with my whole range, I mean, not my entire range, but with my whole betting range, I would deploy large bets. I wouldn't really reopen the action for like 2 big blinds. It wouldn't really be worth it for me.
Okay.
If I'm betting here, I'm going to be betting a jack, a good 7, a flush, a straight. I don't think I have a straight, but a flush or trips. So in that context, I'll just bet pretty big. Yep.
Yeah, I think I like what you're saying there. I think that was the bet size was too small in the end.
Yep. And then I guess something people might think about is like in this exact scenario, they'll be like, okay, you identified he has a lot of 5X and 7X and ace high. So why would you want to bet so big? Well, the reason is like, I'm fairly confident that we don't really lose much. And yes, if I bet big, so let's say we bet 6 or 7 big blinds here. Like, let's say he starts off by folding 8-5 like he had. It's like, why would you bet so big? You blew him off that hand. You didn't get any value. Well, my counter to that would be I have no shortage of air here because I have a super wide range. So I'll just continue to bluff and bluff and bluff and bluff until you realize that I'm bluffing too much and then you start calling me. It's kind of circular in that way, but that's kind of my thesis where I will incentivize to call you because you should know that I'll be definitely bluffing here a lot. And yeah, great question. I just see Stozy Pokes in chat. What do your bluffs look like with this 6-3 spot? So I mean, keep in mind that, let's see what happened pre-flop. So it went limp check. So we have a ton of hands pre-flop to choose from. And then on this board, it's pretty reasonable for us to stab with a bunch of straight draws. Like we could have 6 deuce, we could have 4 deuce, we could have ace deuce, we could have ace 4. We could even have hands like queen nine, queen eight, stuff like that is pretty decent. Queen four, king four. Like we could just have a very wide range of bluffs here. And goes check call, and then we see this turn, which is kind of coordinated, so it does make sense to check back like a reasonable amount of your range. It's kind of debatable if I would blast all of my air here, but basically when we get here, I still think I have a good amount of air. So I would say final answer, what would my bluffs be? Ace deuce, ace four, maybe four deuce is a hand I wouldn't really want to bet the turn with because it's open-ended and I don't really want to get check raised off that type of hand. Maybe a hand like queen eight or 10-9 or 10-8 or 9-8. There's a good amount of hands in there too that I would have. So I think all those hands are pretty reasonable to bluff with. Yep. Yeah, exactly. Like queen X or 10X with a diamond for sure. Yep. You could even just have like 8-9 of hearts, right? Because like, do I really, on this turn card, do I really want to bet 8-9 of hearts? I have a double gut shot and two reasonable live cards to hit in position. Yeah. So I think there's a good amount of bluffs to pick from. Yeah, I would just call. I don't think I would shove. Yeah, I don't really have any questions on that. I wouldn't advocate for like leading the river.
Yeah, that person had queen on the button against me in the big blind and then ace, and I was just like, like, can I get some of those hands?
Yeah, three-handed too, right?
Yeah. In spots where I have to defend, you know, and I hit on the flop.
Yep.
Lucky to not.
So this is a spot where I would probably transit, given the stacks, we have 30. This player has a little bit more than this player. I would probably just raise or fold my range. And that's even before today. That's how I would have approached it. It looks like with the ICM in the small, when we're in the small blind, that it kind of pulls out the limping that I'm used to. So yeah, I would probably advocate for just raising or folding, and then whether you wanted to raise your whole range, which would probably not be the worst idea given the fact that this player probably overfolds based off what we've seen, that's not the worst idea. Or if you just want to fold this, that's also fine.
But I think limping is probably the worst of all the options.
Ooh, that's annoying. I'd probably just fold. Yeah, I think it's fine. Probably just check. I don't think stabbing's terrible, but
yeah, I think the way I thought it was like, well, it's hard to defend that board, and I have 6 high, so I get a lot of like way better hands to fold, and I'm blocking some of like the ways that they may continue. So it's like I'm like, and I know that that's not necessarily like I'm not really trying to get value with my bet. I'm really just trying to like win a hand with 6 high and move on.
Yeah.
And I don't know if like this is, but I'm thinking like, what's the bottom of my raising range? This is like down near the bottom of what I'm going to be raising in this like situation from the button. And that's how I've like started to think about like,
oh yeah, no, you're good. I don't know why I misinterpreted the spot. I don't know why. I thought we were blind versus blind.
No.
Yeah, no, I would probably just bet close to range here. My bad. Yeah, my answer was, I guess my head was elsewhere. No, this is really good then. Thank you for pointing that out. You said bottom of raising range, and I was like, wait, didn't we check back the flop? My bad.
You're good.
Yeah, betting there is going to be pretty good. What are these stack sizes? You could probably start this. So this would be an exploit, like widening of your range, but you could probably do it because again, this player on average is probably too tight. And then this player, I guess they're probably pretty good, but they're kind of handcuffed given the stacks. So you could probably widen a little bit if you wanted to. It's fine to fold, but if you want to take advantage of the situation, you could also do that.
No, I think it's right. Ragin, thank you so much for that follow. By the way, appreciate that. Hope you're enjoying the content. Exclamation point. I'll get Schwibbs a shout out too. As we're about to talk about, this is a big. So if you're interested in a coach or in more things that Schwibbs does, you can kind of check his content out, and I highly recommend him as someone to work with. So yeah, this is like as I do the intro, like we've now hit like the hand that's probably like one of the biggest decision points I've had in. It might not even be that big, but like, you know, once we got down to like 3, 4, 5 handed.
Yeah, I would say that this for me is a snap. Would you consider folding this or not?
No, when I got dealt this hand, I said, chat, no matter what like happens, I call or jam. Like I'm not ever folding this hand 3-handed in this situation, being the chip leader. And especially once A-Way, if A-Way jammed, I might have considered folding. I might have like
exploit move on.
Like, exploitively thought about folding because like, I haven't really seen the way they play that they jam it. I wouldn't think they jam like if I'm on the button with 21 bigs, like I might jam ace 10, ace 9. Like I might think about jamming those hands and some like suited like aces and stuff like that. Like, although I think like you could be burning at 20 bigs, some stuff, but like I don't think that they're ever jamming 22 bigs with worse than ace jack off. So exploitatively I fold, but like once they fold, I said there's no way I ever fold this. Like I can't fold blind v blind.
Yeah,
situation.
Yeah, I'm with you. Yeah, we would call way worse hands here, so I would definitely call this. Nice.
It's a great time to hold. Great time to hold, you know?
Oh yeah, actually, can I redo that? Yeah. This might take a little bit longer. The setting just like kind of accounts for future game, at least is my understanding. I don't know how great it is, but it tries to do that. So if they're jamming 50% of hands, which I think is like relatively reasonable, maybe it's a little bit tighter than that. Maybe they jam something that looks more like this. Well, no, because they wouldn't just like jam aces. So let me make this my own range. Wait, that's just aces.
Yeah, I think that's what I was thinking about. Is like they're not jamming like aces and.
I don't know if they would just jam ace king. I'm not sure, but
ace king off maybe, but I don't.
Yeah,
that's what I would think. Like ace king off is potentially like.
People probably wind up just like jam. Maybe they would jam jacks and things, but something like this. I don't know if that's reasonable. I don't know, something like this. It's not perfect, but that would be like my intuition. Maybe it's like supposed to be a lot wider than that, and like more offsuit king X, but it was so called way worse hands than this. So
yeah, I don't know if I would say ace 8 off. I don't know if I called. It might have been like ace 9 or ace 10 is probably ace 10. I think I call for sure. Ace 9 I would have off. I would have like probably had to think about, and I don't know what I would have ended up doing in that one.
It's kind of funny because I was like, oh, I would just snap ace 9, but then I realized I just saw the answer, so maybe that's why I would snap ace 9.
Yeah.
But yeah. All right, so we got some heads up action. The first thing I'll say is when we're on the button, basically don't fold. You can fold 7 deuce off and 3 deuce off, and besides that, you probably shouldn't fold.
Okay.
So in that context, we'll play a pretty heavy limp strategy. Also pretty heavy raise strategy. We'll do both. So that's kind of what I'd be thinking. It's annoying, but yeah, I think calling's fine. I think folding based off what we've seen is probably fine too, but
yeah.
Okay. It's pretty interesting.
I was tempted to start betting. Actually, I think I did bet if I recall, and I'm just trying, or maybe I didn't. Like I think once they check, like I don't like, maybe they have queen X with how passive they've been, but I'm thinking they could also have like jacks or 10s, or like ace jack, ace 10 type thing that they're like, I don't think ace king and I don't think ace queen checks a second time. So like, I don't think that they have a lot of queen X unless they're super trappy. So I think that I can get better like ace X, that like 3-bet or better hands to fold if I bet this once they check to me a second time.
Yeah, for sure. I'm in the same camp. I would bet like between 5 and 6 big blinds and basically shove most rivers if I were to bluff this hand, because I think when we bet here, like you said, they're going to have jacks and tens a lot for how they played. They're going to have ace jack, ace 10. You also get, if they had a hand like ace 8 through ace 5, you get that to fold right now, which is great. But I would bet that size, kind of expecting to get called, but then also expecting a lot of those hands, if not most, almost all of them, to fold the river. I'd say the only way you really get calls here is if they have, obviously if they have like quads or something, that'd be weird. But like ace, king, aces, and king jack maybe would be hands I could like conceivably see maybe. But I'd be pretty comfortable to just bet half pot and shove the river.
And I watched the cards up replay, so I know that they had ace 10.
They had ace 10, yeah.
So yeah, you always have to fire 2 to get those full. Yeah, I mean, in theory, Stosey's pokes is right. I think I would have to fire twice to get. If I was playing, listen, Chad, if I was heads up versus Schwibbs, I would be betting with the intent to like bet the river, like probably fairly large. And I think I would probably use larger sizings against different players, but I didn't feel like I needed to bet like half pot to get. They were going to fold like probably if I bet like a third or half, but I think you're right. Like betting like 5 or 6 is probably. So I think that was like an exploitative, like, and this was our first like heads up hand. And so I was like, okay, I'm like kind of testing some things to see like, how are they going to respond to some of this? So.
Also, another thing that people, including myself, I'm terrible at it. Most people don't 3-bet enough heads up. So that's another thing to keep in mind. The reason why I brought that up is it's very possible that this hand's just a shove pre-flop.
Yeah, I was gonna say like this. I think like when we went to the flop, I was gonna ask you if I should have like 3-bets like shove or 3-bet not all in, especially king 10 because it's like the offsuit, and so it's got like, I know like we've talked about like once you get below like 40, the offsuits are like when you're deeper, like you want suited hands, like they play better and like. Yeah.
It's weird though, because once you introduce shoving as the answer, then it kind of goes back to suited hands sometimes. So if you're going to shove 20 or 25 big blinds pre-flop, for the most part, if you're going to do it as a bluff, you're going to do it with jack 10 suited and not jack 10 offsuit. So that's something to keep in mind. We can see here though. So this is both equal stacks. So I don't know how that would necessarily change because we're of course not equal stacks here. This player raises and just like mixes across all the options, which is fair enough, but we can see how much jam there is. It's basically the whole ace high block and the low pairs.
Yeah, I think I definitely like any ace X I would have jammed in that situation, and then probably low pairs. Like this probably is what my jamming range would have, like king queen off for sure. I think jack king off. I don't know if I would be jamming like king 4 off, but it's
these bluffs are always the funniest because if you do this, like if you shove king deuce and then lose, you feel so bad about yourself. I've been there before and I'm like, I know this is probably fine. I looked up later and I didn't do this exact one, but it was one of those ones where I was like, I bet this is good. I did it and I lost and I looked it up and it was good. I felt like such an idiot though. It was so funny.
Stosey asked a question that in their experience when betting larger on turn and having them call, their frequency of calling rivers with lower SPR increases a ton, thus making smaller turn bluff size into river jam in bluff more preferable as pool exploit, and asked about thoughts. Yeah,
that's definitely possible. It would just get kind of weird though, because the way that I think about this is when I think about my value first, I want to maximize how often I get called. Of course, that would be the goal of value. So back to that spot, if we had trip queens or a straight or something, I would want to maximize the chances I get called. And when you bet geometrically, so the same fraction on both streets, mathematically, you would maximize how often they call. And then with bluffs, I want to take the same approach because I want them to look the same. So I don't want to start then using my bluffs for a smaller sizing and then a larger sizing on the river, especially in the pool that I play in because it's relatively small, especially at the higher stakes games. So I feel like, I know I'm not supposed to worry too much about counter exploits, but I feel like that one would be relatively obvious, like fairly quickly. So like, yes, would it work as an exploit? Probably, but would I want to do it personally and would I advocate for it? Not really. So yeah, that would be how I think about it. Hopefully that kind of helps.
So a solid yes and no type of answer.
Yeah, exactly. Like yes, in theory, or like in exploit theory, it would definitely work, but I still wouldn't do it just for those reasons. I would not advocate for folding here.
Yeah, I think that this is like a bad fold. I remember when watching this like a couple times, like, oh, that was a stupid ass fold. Like, what was I thinking in that moment?
All good. Happens.
Yeah.
So they have this. I just wonder like how much jamming are we supposed to do? I'm not sure. Pre-flop. Yeah, so not much. It's like ace four and pocket threes. Cool. You see how much limping there is though, right?
Yeah.
A lot of limp.
Yeah, after like once they're like below 20 bigs, like limping becomes more preferable, I guess.
Yep. This is fine. I don't have any major issues with this. All right, thoughts here. I'll ask you on this one. It's funny because I feel like this might be similar to that other hand, but
well, I mean, I see bets. I think I could certainly like you can make cases for like barreling with the gut shot. So I don't remember what I did. And actually, ask me, I think I might even just like RNG this, but I think you could say like maybe someone could say something like, well, if you're bluffing King Jack, you're almost bluffing every King X combo type thing. And like how do you like, am I like potentially like over bluffing? But I don't really know the answer to that.
Yeah, I would say like, yes, from theory perspective, if you're bluffing this, you're bluffing all of your air. I would assume. I mean, maybe you wouldn't wind up bluffing if you had a hand like 9-5, but that would be what that would insinuate. I don't know what the word is for that, but
yeah,
because this is one of the highest up hands that you can have. So we can bluff, for example, with 5-6 and 6-4 and stuff, and then 9x and then Jack X, and then we get up to here.
Yeah, I think I would rather like be bluffing like 6-4 than I would be King Jack. I guess is how I would think about that. Because like I can still win with King High. I can still win with King High, and I still have like lots of equity going to the river. And so
yeah, I think that's reasonable because they could have you have a very, very small amount of showdown, but they can have King 9, Queen 9, like maybe King X of diamonds, maybe like King 5 of diamonds, probably not, but it's a very small amount of showdown. Whereas when you have 6-4, you have 0. So yeah, I like that way of thinking about bluffing. I think it's good. And then here, I personally wouldn't advocate for bluffing. The only reason is it's just a bluff to value ratio management, which is a mouthful. But basically, I would use the same heuristic where I want to bluff from the bottom of the deck up. And if I'm betting this, then I'm going to be bluffing with all my air on the river, which I still have a good amount of. So it's just a way of me regulating how often I bluff. I'm also constrained value because we checked back in this turn. Doesn't mean it's not impossible, but if we have 2 pair plus, we're probably going to bet pretty much all of it. So like maybe we have ace queen or something, or ace 9 or ace 5. We can have those hands, or 8x. We could definitely have trips on this river. Yeah. It kind of reintroduces some strong hands, but I still think we have a ton of air, and my guess would it be relatively important to make sure you don't bluff all of it. So I would advocate for checking back. So I think it's pretty good. Of course, he has like the one hand that you would probably get to fold. Not the one hand, but
yeah,
he has a hand you would definitely get to fold. So kind of unfortunate.
I mean, I did think about that. Like when that popped up, I was like, well, I'd probably get that hand to fold if I decide to like barrel turn or, bet river. But like, again, all the things you said are like the reasons why I don't think I'm over bluffing probably.
Yeah. Yeah. If you pull the trigger with all the other hands, I think that's going to be pretty good. Thoughts here?
So like, I think in terms of like thinking about like check raising, like there are definitely some, like one thing I did kind of notice is that when they were in position that we're only a few hands in, and like you'll notice this pattern I picked up, like they always they see bet a lot in position, like, which you should like. And so I think this is like one of those, like, this was like check raise to basically probably fold if they decided to like jam or something like that. But to like with like the 9 of clubs and blocking some like straight draws and stuff like that, I was like, well, I could like probably get to fold like better hands and things. But so I don't know if this is like the best, but like I don't think I check raise like 8x. But I think I might. This is kind of like, this isn't like a bluff, but this is like I have some equity type of like mixing in some check raise type things. So it's not just I'm check raising like nutted like hands and draws. I think is kind of like what I was thinking. Like really strong high equity draws.
Okay.
And I'm blocking like,
personally,
yeah, go ahead.
I would not advocate for this, and the one of the main reasons is with what you said is your intention here when you check raise was to fold to a jam, right? If I heard that correctly.
Yeah.
So in my eyes, you're kind of turning this hand that has a lot of showdown and a lot of equity, right? You have a pair of sixes with backdoor straight and flush draws. You're kind of turning that into like 5-4 or something. So you can bluff in a more polarized way. I think it would still be effective, right? Because you can still attack this player with a good frequency because there are a lot of hands that you can pick that are air. It's like polarized gut shots, right?
Yeah.
So I'd want to use those hands more, and then these middle and lower pairs less, because it's a lot of equity to leak when you raise and then fold to a jam.
Yeah.
So my value range would be very defined. It'd be like Jack X plus, and then maybe the best 8x. So maybe ace 8 and king 8 would be hands that would fit into like a check raise stack off scenario. But mainly speaking, it's Jack X plus and then polarized bluffs. And I wouldn't really include like a merged type hand in here.
Okay.
It's hard to know if this would work based on the reasons that you said. Like your reasons might be totally valid, but it's kind of hard for me to truly know that.
Yeah. And like they had Jack 10, so
yeah. They have I don't know if you would remember. It doesn't really matter, but did they have Jack 10 with the club?
No, I don't think they did.
Yeah. So it doesn't matter whether they have Jack 10 with a club or not. But basically my point here would be, even against that hand, a hand as strong as that with this, you still have like pretty reasonable equity because there's so many turn cards where you can turn straight draws and then subsequently river straight or 2 pair or something. Yeah. Of course, their 10 interacts in a kind of negative way for some of that, but it just hopefully reiterates the point where like this hand has a good amount of equity.
Yeah.
Even when they're value betting.
Those are really good points. Yeah. I mean, I don't hate being over aggressive, but I think like, it's easier to dial back, I think, over aggression than dialing up the aggression in a sense.
Yeah. Yeah. And I love the aggression too. I would just definitely want to make sure we pick the right hand classes for it.
Yeah. I think your points are like really good.
What happens here? We just call pre-flop. It seems pretty good. This player bets half pot again. I think calling's fine. I'm more in the call camp than the raise camp.
Yeah.
So I think it's totally fine.
I think,
and then they bet, assume we probably just fold.
Yeah. Yep. If I had a hearts, like king of hearts, I wonder if that would be like something where maybe be more inclined to like potentially use as a check raise, because I have a little bit more backdoor equity where if like a heart comes, as well as like a 7 or a king. I mean, if I get a king, like I think I'm certainly gonna like bet, but I think like, there's a lot of like backdoor equity. It introduces more backdoor equity that like if I get called off a check raise, that I can use to like barrel on.
Yeah, you also block how they would continue, right?
Yeah.
You would block like king, queen of hearts, which would be helpful. Yeah. Oh wait. Oh yeah, you folded, so it's good. All right, how deep are we here? Okay, cool. I would definitely check back this hands. Cool. I'm not going to reopen the action on the turn. Don't think you would either. I'm not going to reopen on the river. Don't think you would either. Seems pretty good.
Yeah. Well, before starting working with you, I probably would have felt like I needed to bet the like flop and stuff. It's just realizing when you have like showdown value and they're not showing aggression that I'm probably like good. But also, what am I going to get to call me on the river that I beat? In a sense, maybe ace high, but like, maybe. But no, I didn't think that player would call with ace high.
Yeah, fair enough.
Schwibbs would call with ace high, I think, on the river.
Maybe, I don't know.
Maybe, yeah.
We'll see.
Maybe. No, I don't. I'm just kidding. I don't know if he would have. All right.
So you defended this one. I'm curious about this because the heuristic I have in my head now is to defend like what looks similar to a button opening range or a little bit wider. So I think I'm at like Jack 7 offsuit.
Okay.
Maybe not even Jack 6. So I'm curious if I'm way too tight or if you're way too wide. I think it's one or the other. So we'll see.
Go take a look.
Like 28 or something.
Yeah, I don't think I necessarily like am super in the heads up. Like if that was like small blind versus big blind, like I know what I should like if there's like a limp, like if I limp and then they raise, like what I defend. Like we've been through that. So I know like how to cut that off. But I think in this situation.
Okay. Yeah, I'm like massively off. There's no folding here. Wait. Yeah, wow. Okay.
Oh, okay.
I don't know where I got that button thing from then. Because this is not much folding at all. Like I know heads up ranges are wide, but that's interesting. I always thought that this would be tighter because we're out of position post flop, but I guess not. So nice defend. We would even call Jack 2 soft. So I was like miles off from the spot.
I don't know if I would call Jack 2 soft. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah, but it goes to show you, like I think I study quite a bit, and I still get stuff wrong all the time. So, yeah. And I'm not like some genius. I just like try and memorize things the best I can, and I do a pretty bad job at that. So it's just the reason I'm saying this is because it's just so important to keep studying because it's impossible to know everything. All right, yeah, folding is gonna be pretty fine.
I think if like say I had like Jack 8, I don't ever fold that, but like Jack 5 I do because I have like 2 overs to like the 2. Like I have 2 so
definitely could have bet at some points here, but I think it's kind of fine as played. I don't think it's the worst. What I did notice though is like as of right now, at the time of when you played this, it looks like your strategy is just like min raise most hands because we haven't seen any limps yet. That might just be like dumb luck, but I would say you might want to start working in more limps.
Okay.
Heads up pre-flop. That's definitely fine. Yeah, this is good. Ooh, this is interesting. All right, thoughts here.
Well, it went check. Like this is the first time I think they'd ever like raised the button and then decided to check the flop. And I remember like on stream, I was like, come on, like you kidding me? Like I finally like flop like a decent, like a pretty like, I mean, this is pretty nutted for like heads up, 2 pair, even if it's like bottom 2 pair. So I think after it goes check, I think I probably need to bet, but I guess, like, and I mean, I hope I went like 53%, but maybe I went like 33% because like of the player type but I think normally I go like mid size on like the turn after it goes check on the flop.
Yep, that's reasonable. For me here, I would come out swinging with pretty large bets. I'd probably just bet like 5. The reason for that is when they check back here, they're capped. So they don't really have strong hands. They don't have overpairs or 10x really. And so here, I'm pretty confident that we can just, we have so many, not only do we have so many draws, but we also have a lot of strong hands too. So with pretty much all those hands, I think we could just bet like 5 big blinds and pressure their range really, really heavily. So that's what I would do. I'm not sure if that's like great. I also thought about checking this hand because we block, when we have the 7 and the 5, we block ways that they would check back the flop and then call the turn. So they would do that with things like 7x and 5x. And so like personally, I'd be more inclined to bet 10-3, and not just because it's a better 2 pair, but just because of the blocking effects of that type of hand.
Yeah. That's because like how like what are they calling is kind of the question. So
we can actually run this one. I don't think we've seen a post flop spot, so it's pretty interesting. But they should with all their over pairs, I would guess that they would bet all of them, maybe not aces, but no, they do bet all of them. So that's kind of what I mean when they do check. Like they don't, I mean, okay, they can have a set, but it's such a small fraction of their range. They have the weakest top pairs and some amount of under pairs, but it's pretty dense. Second pair, third pair, ace high, very dense ace high, king high. And even if like some people might say like, oh, your opponent's not studying GTO, so why does it matter? Even if they don't study this, I think this is pretty natural for people to do. It's pretty natural for people to bet all their strong hands on this board. So I think this is a pretty good output to be looking at. So they check back. We see some 3. And my thesis is with like a lot of our strong hands, we could just come out swinging and betting pretty large sizings. And we see that's pretty reasonable here. It doesn't use 7-5 as much. It probably doesn't even use 2 pair as much as I was. It's probably more dense, like just top pair. So 10-4, for example, 10-6, 10-8. And that probably just has to do with the blocking effects of those hands. So like 10-5, 10-3, 10-7, all these 2 pair hands, you kind of block a lot of how you would get called. So it actually just uses mainly top pair for those bigger sizings.
Okay.
And then 2 pair mixes more heavily to check. And then straights, I mean, mixes a check, but has a pretty high bet percentage. And then the nice thing is we have no shortage of air again. So we could just keep doing this until they start calling us with ace high. So if we bet 1.5x pot, there's not that many ace high calls, but there's some. And then there's also going to be a ton of second pair calls because that's mainly what they have is 7x. So that's why it wouldn't work great with this hand because you can't block how you get called. But
yeah, okay, yeah, I think that's really good to think about.
Yeah, it's a bunch of stuff to think about. But the more that you do this, I was talking about this with a student earlier. Like the more that you run through with all of these kind of like predictive reasoning of solver outputs, the easier it gets to implement in game. Right now, for someone who's maybe newer at listening to this, it might be like, how do you run through all this in your head in game? And I don't run through all of it, but you would be surprised I run through, I think, a good amount to get to pretty solid answers. That's, of course, the goal. The river's fine, whether you wanted to bet this size or bet bigger. I think both are going to be pretty good.
Yeah. So. Yeah. I mean, well, I did end up checking the turn, so.
Yeah. I don't really want to get into this. This could possibly be a defend because you have the 10 of hearts, but
yeah,
whatever. Yeah, I think this is fine. Probably over bluffing if I had to guess, but I think it's probably fine. Yeah. I would do the same.
I think that they're just like over folding. So once they check the turn or flop, I mean.
Yeah, I would do the same. It's like they're over folding, so we're definitely going to over bluff. One thing to point out is he didn't limp this hand, which just through this hand history, it looks like you raised more of the top end of the deck and then limped this. So if that was your strategy, I would just want to highlight. Yeah. Make sure to include limps with some stronger hands.
Yeah, I think like aces or kings, like, you know, I might be into like limping some of those, but yeah.
Yeah. Unfortunate hand, but is what it is. Yep, that seems pretty good. I hate this because I want to shove, but with the way that they've played, I don't want to shove.
Yeah, I think that's the reason that I didn't shove and I just called, because I was like, well, they're only going to call with like better, and I can just play post flop and exploitatively fold. Like, I don't know if I probably should fold here, like always, but against different players, I would consider not folding ace 10 in this situation.
Yeah, that's reasonable. Do you know what they wound up having? I'm just curious.
Oh man, I can't remember now. But I think they had a made hand. I don't think they had like a non-made hand. So
I wouldn't recommend for folding, but it's not going to be some super profitable call, so I just call, like knowing I'm probably going to lose or that we chop. But yeah, I probably just wind up calling.
Yeah, I know. I think this was like one of the places where I should have called instead of folding. So I agree. I mean, I think I probably lose a lot, but
Yeah.
I know people say, well, exploitatively, look at the way the person's been playing. Like, you're never good there. And I'm like, yeah, most likely not. But
That's a tough situation. I don't know what I would do. I probably wind up calling because I'm a station. But I don't think it's necessarily like amazing. I don't know.
again, different players, I think I call heads up. But against this person, I think they had a flush. I can't really remember, or like a queen or something like that, if I recall. So I was definitely behind.
I'd probably wind up calling because it's just way too easy for this person to have like Jack 8 with the 8 of hearts, or like just some random hand with one heart. Like it's or like 6x or 4x. It's super easy for this player to be bluffing.
Yeah.
So I would want to make sure I call enough here.
Yeah, I think that probably like it should have been a call.
Seems good to me. Seems good to me. Oh, it stinks.
Yeah, it was annoying. All right, thoughts here. I guess my question would be, what do you think that their range is, or what they have, what their most dense? Well, I think it's mostly going to be like flush draws, and straights, maybe like 2 pairs. I don't think they have like ace X. I think that would have bet the turn, but possibly could have like Jack X, I guess. But based off this player, I'm thinking it's probably straights, flushes, and maybe 2 pairs with a sprinkle of ace X mixed in.
Yeah, I would maybe I could be too narrow-minded here. That could happen, but I think for them checking back the flop removes a good amount of their ace X, not all. They could have like ace X.
Oh, that's right. Okay, yeah, they were in position. I totally would have flipped that. So yeah, okay, no ace X, drop that.
Yep. And then on the turn, they checked back this draw heavy 2-tone texture on the turn. That's extremely capping to me. So I don't think they really have 2 pair sets or ace X much. Now this river might reintroduce some amount of small 2 pairs, so like 5-6 or something potentially, but it's pretty unlikely. You also block it. I think a lot of the flush draws naturally would bet either the flop or the turn. So to me, their range is like, when I look at this, it's like, okay, you're telling me you have a jack or bust, I guess. I don't know. Like a jack or 10-9 or queen 10 or something. So I'd probably be curious and just look it up and call. But yeah. Okay, they wound up having like this exact ace can make sense for players to have when they have the flush draw to go with the ace. So that's fine. I definitely don't hate your call. Like I said, I'd do the same thing.
I think it was like I called and then I rolled when they flipped it over.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah, I would have done the exact same thing. Yeah.
Like,
so I would just jam this hand. Yeah, you do the same.
Like, what is happening heads up right now? Like, that's what I was like thinking.
Call. Nice.
Yeah, obviously didn't lose that if, we're here reviewing a victory.
I didn't ask because I'm fine with pretty much any answer here.
Yeah, I think you could like check. I think you could bet. Like, I assume like you can mix that.
Yeah, you could bet bigger too if you wanted to. I think it's fine. Yep, this is going to be pretty fine. Dang it.
Yeah, we get knocked down a couple times.
I was gonna say, I feel like I remember this. This is so random, but I have this weird memory where I think I was in some mall, like shopping for something when this was going on. Maybe I don't know. Well, no, this would have been at night.
Yeah.
So maybe I was watching. I think I was watching the replay of it, to see if you won, and I was like walking around the mall just staring down at my phone at this. I don't know. It's kind of funny. This is just some random memory that I have.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that like this heads up battle is like a testament to like people like staying mentally strong and not getting too dejected when things don't go your way, you know?
Yeah. Oh, this is a pretty good fold. So I think a lot of people might mischaracterize some hands here. But on this board texture, this might be one of your worst sixes to call with, because you would block his potential bluffs of 10-9 and 10-8, maybe. But more so, like a hand like 5-4 is going to vastly outperform this. And you have a lot of hands that look like that. You have a lot of 7-5, 6-5, 5-4, even a hand like 4-3 or 7-8 or 6-8, right? There's kind of endless hands in there. Even a hand like 8-9 could potentially outperform this.
Yeah.
So there's so many competing hand classes where we want to make sure that we don't wind up over investing money here. So that's a pretty good fold. So yeah, I definitely don't fold
Yeah.
the suited hands here. Kind of stinks because like game flow, especially when you get knocked down, you're like, oh, I don't want to lose another half big blind, especially if they jam. But like I've kind of been in that mindset before, but you just have to, I think it's more profitable to just take the spot and limp.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's a good idea. So it says you're doing what Cervonius did to me in ring event on Thursday. Oh man, got second. That's brutal.
Yeah, I've gotten second in a ring event before. It was brutal.
It's not fun.
No. Ooh, okay. Thoughts?
I think that this should be yeah, this is an interesting one. Because we block Queen 10, which is like the nuts. But we don't block we obviously don't have any clubs or anything like that. So I can see this as like a call, but like also I could see someone saying like, I don't know if raising would be, if I had like queen, like 7, queen 8, queen 9, maybe raising would be like better because I'm blocking like 2 pair combinations that might continue. But like queen 5, I mean, I'm also blocking like the straight at the bottom. So I think like this could be like one to raise with.
Yeah, that's where my mind jumped to first. I don't know if folding is fine. It might be just because of the board texture. But I was thinking if we have a 10, we're obviously going to raise.
Yeah.
And if we're going to try to offset that, I feel like queen 5 and queen 6 are
that's a good point.
Probably the best hands to use. So
like a small, like probably like I imagine would be like a 33% raise is like GTO Wizard, like 33% raise. So yeah, I like that. Yeah. I think that would be, and you're probably going to fold out lots of things. I also suspect that I think this person did have a straight, if I recall. I don't remember exactly, but I think I was also sus that this person was probably fairly nutted on this type of board based off the way they had played.
Yeah. Yeah, fair enough.
Really would have liked to call there.
Yeah.
Maybe not. I might have lost, so maybe glad they folded.
Yep. Yeah, I think this is good. Nice.
And I remember that hand specifically because like people had, like I said, like you've seen me like overfold a lot to this person in places where I said like that queen 5, I'd say like normally I wouldn't fold. I think in the queen 5, like I just talked about, like I wouldn't normally fold this, but to like this player and stuff, like thinking about the way they've been playing, and then like here I am calling with like 4th pair on this board, and I was like the way they had played this was different. Like the rhythm of like their betting patterns was different than the other ways, and so I was like very sus, and I was like 6 deuce seems like I unblock a lot of their bluffs with the deuce. Oh, yeah. Like I mean, I think I'd rather call the 6 deuce than maybe like 6-9, 6-10. Because like I'm blocking some of the things that they would bluff with.
Yeah, because it's definitely reasonable for them to check back this turn with like 10-8 or 10-9
Mm-hmm.
for sure. At this point in the hand, like they're basically telling, this is a good learning lesson, I think, for most people. They're pretty constricted to value. They're basically telling you that they have like jacks or 7x. And so it's way too easy to wind up over bluffing because, again, we have heads up ranges. So you have so many combos. So it's important to keep that in mind and not just like blast away with all of your air.
I mean, I probably don't bet king 9 there because like king high is good so often.
Yeah, definitely has some amount of showdown. Yep, that looks pretty good to me. Nice.
Yeah, that was a really good value bet on the river. I felt pretty good about finding that based off of like reading the way that the betting patterns had gone.
Yep. Yeah, this is like it's not going to be a fold. It's similar to that other ace deuce spot where it's like it's not insanely profitable, but you just close your eyes and call. Like you just don't fold. And it's frustrating, but it is what it is.
Yeah, that flop was.
I honestly hate calling off deuces there, but I know we're not supposed to fold.
Yeah. I don't. How do you fold a pair with? And they only have like 8 bigs. Oh, I think that's the other thing. Like.
Yep, seems pretty good to me. I imagine we can call by loads of 10x. Yep. That stinks. So they only have 10 big ones. Yeah, this one I would use, it's kind of similar to what we saw before. I would use like a shove the middle and then kind of like limp fold the bottom, limp call the top, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
So limp call, obviously aces, kings, queens, probably all the way down to like sevens. I would go pretty far down with the pairs. And then limp fold a hand like queen 3, queen 4, queen 5 off, but then wind up shoving like this type of hand, jack 9 suited, you know what I mean? Shove the middle.
Okay.
So we can just take a quick look and see what that looks like. I think it's like 10 bigs.
So if they limp, like what we're shoving essentially.
So this is us on the button.
Oh yeah, that's right. Okay, yeah, we're opening the action. Sorry, yeah.
Yep. So yeah, this is kind of the picture I had in my head where I said limp. It goes all the way down to 5s. I said 7s, whatever. It doesn't matter. It's just the general idea where you limp this top half with the intention to obviously limp call it off, and then this bottom half to limp fold. And what that prevents you from happening, well, it's kind of funny that queen 10 actually winds up pure limping, but I could tell you if it's doing this, it's probably just calling it off. But it'll prevent you from like limping these types of hands and then folding. These hands have definitely a good amount of equity, enough equity to jam.
Mm-hmm.
So let's say if we do limp and they shove, I'm sure we just call queen 10, right? Yep. It's kind of annoying.
Well, and I think I folded, and the reason I folded was because of their play style. Like, so that to me is like it's like right at the bottom, and if like based off their play style, like if I'm going to chop off like anything, like queen 10 would be the hand that I want to, like that's the type of hand that I want to chop off if I'm going to say like I want to adjust the player play style. But I do think like normally I probably call off queen 10. But in this one I was like this based off of like just the feel of the player, like I'm probably at best flipping, which isn't a bad thing. I've already flipped twice.
No, I'm with you. I would definitely, against this player, I would probably wind up overfolding too, based off what we've seen. Yeah. But even knowing that, like going back here, even knowing that this is output, I would still just rather jam this hand than limp it.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I guess this player type, it might be better just to jam it than to limp it.
Yeah. Like, yes, I know the solvers tell me that limping is more profitable. That's what this means. But like on a go forward basis, just for my heuristic, like all the hands around it jam. So I'm comfortable kind of like simplifying my life here and just jamming this.
Yeah.
And then like we don't have to wind up worrying about if we limp and they jam type thing.
Makes sense.
Ooh, tough. What you think?
I think this is one where, like, if we're talking about like where do I find bluffs, like I think 7-4, the 7 high is definitely like in the place where I start to like think like I mean, I think like even 8 high and 9 high potentially I could think about, but I think 9 high is getting a little like starting to get, as much as it sucks, starting to get a little bit into like I might be bluffing depending on the 9x. Like I'm just saying like, so but like I think this is a hand that I think like after I bet the turn, and with this specific river, I bet again.
Yeah. Good. No, that's awesome. I also think it's important not having a spade because that's based off of my assumption is a high frequency way they'll call the turn and fold the river might be spades. So you will run into a 5 a good amount, but it's important to not like think like, oh, this player, they might be tighter on average. They called me, we see a board pair, and they're just going to always call me. It's important to not get in that mindset and make sure you still fire with this type of a hand. So personally, I would go like 3 bigs or whatever. Yeah, size seems like fine to me. And they're obviously pretty much top of their range, so it's not a big deal.
There's like like one of those like eye roll hands, like, yeah. Okay, come on.
Oh, good. I love this. I think a lot of people would just be like, oh, you should just jam this pure. I think this is awesome. So
yeah, I think 7s plus for sure. Like I'm thinking like maybe like 6s, like, and then when this flop came, I was just like, okay.
Yeah, I would probably peel. It sucks, but having the heart and the straight draw, I'd probably want to peeling. It feels like a torch a little bit because you just don't expect to win that often, but
yeah. Well, like they decided to donk lead, and I was just like,
yeah, it's just like a
random, and I think I said I was like outside of like a hearts, but even if like I hit a 10, like how good am I feeling about my life if they decide to bet again? You know, like based off of the way that the play has gone. So,
ooh, it must be good here, right? Or do they probably have an ace too, don't they? Oh no, they have Jack 8. Nice, GG.
Yeah, nothing like winning a MICOOP event with Jack King off. You know?
Yeah, there you go. I knew that one was coming.
We started with a Jack King off joke and we ended with a Jack King off joke, you know, like
it's on brand.
Yeah, it is. It is.